Hi guys, welcome to the podcast. My name is Chloe. This is the first episode of the Quarter Life Crisis podcast. The name is pretty self-explanatory, but just in case, I am almost 25. I'll be 25 next month. And I was just reflecting on life, and I think it very much triggered a quarter life crisis. So why does anyone want to start a podcast? Because I am a complete unknown person to social media. I do have social media accounts and things, but I don't have a brand. I don't have a following of any sort. I am just a complete random person starting a podcast. The main reason I wanted to start this was because the things that I've experienced throughout, not necessarily throughout life, it was more so only in the last few years, in recent years, that I went through a lot of life-changing events. But when I was experiencing these darker times, I did have family and I do have a friend, a really close friend, and I am ever so grateful for that. But a lot, well, if not all of them, had all of their own opinions, which is fine, but they tried to kind of force them onto me. Or if I asked for advice or an opinion, half of them were on one side and half of them were on the other. There was no one in the middle to just give a very generalised, general advice, anything like that. It was very much, you should do this, you should think this, you should say this, you should feel this. And they weren't invalidating my feelings. It wasn't an intentional thing, but it did feel that way. And to be in such a tumultuous time, to be feeling all of these different things, to feel like you're not being heard is a kick in the teeth. Now, this podcast is going to be the middleman. It's going to be the person that if you feel comfortable asking advice for, it will be general. It won't be, you absolutely need to do this. In some instances, it may be that the answer's quite obvious, but sometimes it's not, and people just need help. And so here I am. Yeah. Also, I do really love listening to podcasts. I constantly, when I'm at work, when I'm at home, even if I'm out shopping, I'll listen to a podcast. It's usually true crime, but I do listen to lifetime storytime podcasts, I guess is what they're classed as. It's so nice for me, as me personally, to listen to other people tell their stories or just tell me what they've experienced in life. I just really like listen. I don't know. I just find it so comforting. It's like having a conversation with a friend, and it's just a very nice feeling. And I thought that I've been through some things in life, and I thought I'd just share what I've been through as well. Even if it's just one person who happens to stumble across this, and something I say helps them, or they feel heard, or they feel like, wow, there's someone else going through that. There you go, mission complete. So, as I am a complete unknown person on social media, no one knows me, but I thought because I have rattled my brains for hours about how do you start, what's the starting point, what can the first podcast episode be about, because I could just jump straight into, I've been through this, I've dealt with this, but the context does matter. So I thought for the first episode I would speak about my life. I won't go so in depth into things and tell people everything that I've gone through, every single detail, because we don't want to be here until Christmas. But I thought if I just do a very general overview, and I will insert some things that have happened, but if I just do a very general overview, and then in separate episodes I'll go deeper into these things. Also, I know I need therapy. I know I need therapy, but I absolutely cannot afford therapy. I don't know anyone around me who can afford therapy. It's an amazing thing. It absolutely is. It helps so many people. I don't have that money. I really do not have that kind of money whatsoever. So this actually will almost be acting as my therapy as well. Now, I do want to say, obviously, if that previous part wasn't explanatory enough, I have never been to therapy. I do need it, I know I do, but I have, in a way, gave myself therapy. Now, it's absolutely not to a professional standard in any way, but it's the best I could do. So if at any point I come out with these big words of wisdom, that's all me. No one has told me this. That's all in my brain. So, yeah, I'm going to start with my life story, I guess. But I do want to just say there are very dark moments. If I do mention them, I may not, I may. But I'm just giving a disclaimer that abuse, things like that will be mentioned, like domestic abuse and that kind of avenue. So please don't listen if you find that triggering. Now, I will jump into the deep end just to start, and I'll go off my earliest memory. Now, if you ask, I say quote in quotations, a normal person. It's very different what normal is for each individual, but think of your very standard Jane Doe. If you ask someone, what's your earliest memory? It's usually in the normal, again, quotation sense. It was my 8th birthday or whatever birthday. We had cake, we went to the park, or I was at a party, or I went to the cinema. Mine isn't that. Mine is not sunflowers, rainbows, anything like that. My earliest childhood memory, I was about 3 or 4, and just for context quickly, the way that my childhood home was set out was that we had the hallway, like the landing at the top of the stairs, and my mum's bedroom was on the one end and mine was on the opposite. So I was in my room, it was quite late at night, and I was in bed. I was asleep or half asleep, I'm not entirely sure, but arguing woke me up. Now, again, my mum and my stepdad at the time, their bedroom was right like across the landing, and it's not that big of a house. So if someone's arguing downstairs, upstairs, whatever, you can hear it quite well. And they were arguing about something. I don't know what it was about. Again, this is 20 years ago. But they were arguing over something, and my mum, rather quickly, her voice got quite hysterical. She was saying, like, what are you doing? What's going on? Stop. So I got out of bed and I ran into the hallway, and just as I exit my room, I see my stepdad stood at the top of the stairs, and he has just thrown my mum down the stairs. Now I am screaming and crying. I run down the stairs after my mum. She is completely just crumpled at the bottom of the stairs. She was very out of it. And after that, the details are very fuzzy. I kind of remember we did go to the hospital, I know that. But that was confirmed by my sister, so it's not necessarily I remember it. But I do vaguely remember that my mum was in crutches and also a wheelchair. I think something with her leg. I don't think it was broken, but there was damage. And she was in crutches for a few weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months. I'm not entirely sure again. But yeah, so that is my earliest childhood memory. I do laugh about it now. I don't find it funny in any way, but to say this is my earliest memory to me is a funny thing. The way I deal with negative emotions like this is to joke about it. I only do it to myself. I don't joke about anyone else's trauma or things like that. But for me, that's how I deal with these things. I'm just like, haha, funny. Because again, I don't know any other way to deal with it. So that's exactly how I deal with things. I just joke. Anyway, so let's just put that memory to one side. My childhood was fine. It wasn't anything extraordinary. I didn't go without anything. I wasn't this millionaire daughter or anything like that. But I lived a comfortable life. I went to school like normal. I did well in school. Not amazing, but I did, good. And yeah, my childhood until high school was absolutely normal. It was nothing extraordinary, like I've said. But high school, more towards the end of high school, is where a lot of the experiences happened. So I will kind of skip my childhood because, again, they did, like, my mum and my stepdad did argue, but I think every couple argues throughout life, or at least disagrees. It's just you have two people with two different mindsets, two different outlooks in life. An argument is going to happen here and there. It's fully normal. But yes, high school. So in case there's anyone listening that isn't completely in the know about how British schools work, or well, most British schools work, you have your GCSEs, which are your standardised. When you leave high school, you have this at a minimum. And then after GCSEs, you have A-levels, which are not compulsory. You can opt to do them if you meet a certain criteria. But A-levels are like college level. They're the step before university, basically. So, yeah, high school again was fine. I was bullied a bit, but, a way of life, I guess. And my GCSEs, so I did well. I did good in my GCSEs. I got 9, I think. Humble brag. But I think I got 9. I failed German and I failed geography and I failed history, and I hated all 3 of them, so no tears were shed when I saw that I'd failed them. I fully expected it. I really did not think I would pass. And if I actually did pass them, I think I'd cry tears of amazement. Like, how did I manage that? But I didn't. I failed them anyway. But in the GCSE timeline, this is when my stepdad started a new job. And this new job, to this day, and I'll probably never know why, this job caused a lot of arguments. A lot of arguments started happening. Now, it could just be that the new job just so happened to coincide with the breakdown of their relationship. It could be that. But the way that it looked was that the job caused a lot of arguments. So my GCSEs went fine. And I did opt to do A-levels. I could go, so I thought, why not? But the beginning of my A-levels, the A-levels start in September, like the new school year starts in September. And in the October is when they had split. And I wasn't home this particular night. Now, I did not have much of a social life at this point in time. Again, I will explain. But I was usually home every single night, evening. I rarely went out, and this specific night I wasn't actually home. I was at a friend's 18th birthday party, and from what I have found out, what had happened was that they were arguing, again, per usual. It was every night. They were arguing, and my stepdad had manhandled my mom. He grabbed her hair and her wrist or her shoulder, and he was pulling her out of the house. He eventually did get her out of the house, and he was just, he shut her out. My mum contacted my sister because my sister lived quite local. My sister came to collect my mum, and then the police were involved, and the rest is history. So this very much affected me. The way that I explain it is that my stepdad, I never saw him as a dad. I knew he wasn't my dad. he knew he wasn't my dad. We had a friendship. It wasn't it was never a father and a daughter relationship, but we did have a good friendship, which I think was lovely to have that. And the way that I describe this is that he was one of my best friends at the time, and suddenly he's no longer there. So, like, he was an important figure in my life. I'd known him since growing up, and he's no longer there, and suddenly he's the worst person ever. You're being told all of these different stories about him and his past and what he's done and how horrible of a person he is. And it's such a strange thing because you have your set memories and things and your perception of this person, but then you're being told such ugly things about this really nice person that you had in your life, and like, you saw all the good parts and you didn't see any bad parts, and now you're hearing of all of these bad parts which were bad. And I probably will at some point do a whole episode about my stepdad. But it's such a strange feeling, and also combined with that, you also have to mourn a person that's still alive, because I never saw him again. I haven't seen him since, and I never will see him again. But he's still roaming the earth, and just one night suddenly he's gone, never to be seen again. And it's such a strange, it really is a strange feeling, and I have dealt with it since. Hearing the things I did about him kind of made it a lot easier. But it's something that always sticks around, and I've had to do it twice. So, again, we'll go through that. So, yeah. Now, after they split, all of the attention that my mom was pushing towards my stepdad was now on me, because I do have two older siblings, an older brother and an older sister. But at this point in time, I was in my late teens, they were in their late 30s. Well, mid to late 30s. So they already have their own house, their own partner, jobs, their own kids, life, everything. They do visit home, but they don't live at home. I do. I was at home all the time. So the attention that my mom gave my stepdad was now just on me, because I'm the only person there to throw it all at. And if anyone knows the term narcissism, has dealt with it, knows about it, anything like that, it's not nice. And my mom is a narcissist, was a narcissist, probably still is a narcissist. She is the very definition of a narcissist. And again, very strange thing to deal with, because it's something you don't see until you're out of it. A relationship like that, you think this person has all of your best interests in mind. They're controlling, but they're just looking after you. They make certain comments, but it's just because they don't want you to get unsolicited attention when you're out, or they don't want you to make them look silly, which totally makes sense. And then you come out of it and it's just control. All of it is just control. But again, another episode for another time. Now, in 2018 is when a lot of the drama starts, I guess. My mom met a new man. This is 1 or 2 years later. My mum met a new man, and he was nice. First impressions aren't necessarily the be all and end all with me. They do matter, but if it's a bit awkward or if there's not much conversation, it's truly down to nerves or just awkwardness. You don't know the person, you don't know how to act and things. But by the second or third time at least, you do have, at least for me, I do have a good grasp on who this person is. And I met this man. I'm going to call him Paul because I know his name, so I'm obviously not going to share that information. But I'm going to call him Paul. And Paul was nice. He's very, very full on in the sense of very, very friendly, but overly so. And I'm not, I do have a resting bitch face, but I'm not a stone cold, who are you, get away from me person. I'm just very chill. I just take things as they come, that's it. If I'm meeting a new person, hi, how are you? You make basic chit chat, and then if you can bond over some things, amazing. But he was very full on. Now again, not the end of the world, just a lot to deal with. Big personalities scare me, honestly, because fight or flight, I go into just pause. I just pause mode, and my brain has to think about what it needs to say without coming across weird, or it's a lot to cope with for me. But anyway, so I met him the first time and he was nice enough. And then the second time that I met this man, he came round for food and drinks. It was essentially a date between him and my mum, but I was just kind of there. And at this point, I am 18. It doesn't really matter, but it does at the same. I'm a teenager. I'm a young girl. And after a few glasses of wine, but I'm pretty sure this was the second bottle. It probably absolutely was the second bottle, knowing my mother. They were aggressively, and I mean aggressively, making out in front of me. Now, the way that our living room was set up also, it was kind of like a stretched rectangle. That is a rectangle, bitch. It was a rectangle, and up the one corner was a single sofa, and then next to that was a long 3-seater, and then next to that was another single sofa. So that it stretched across the whole of the one wall, and I was sat on the single sofa on the right, and they were sat in the middle in the 3-seater, and I'm right there. I am not 5-6 feet away from them, and they're aggressively making out. It only went that far, thank the fucking Lord, because I think if it went any further, I'd have ran out the house screaming for help. But I don't think any child should be subject to that kind of behaviour. Personally, again, I'm not a parent, so maybe other people see it differently, but I really think that's strange behaviour. Not only from a mother in front of her young daughter, but from a strange man that I've met twice. That's terrifying behaviour, actually, in my opinion. Anyway, past that, so we went on holiday. We went to Mallorca for 2 weeks. It was a family holiday. It was me and my mum, my sister, her partner, and her children. This is a few weeks after the aggressive makeout session. And this had been planned for months and months in advance. We weren't rich, so we couldn't just book a holiday for next week and go. This was a month long, paying it off bit by bit. It had been planned for a while. Now, a week or a few days before we left, I'm ecstatic. Can't wait to go. I haven't been on holiday for over 10 years. I am so excited. My mum just brings it up. She's like, oh, Paul wants to come on holiday with us. And I'm like, that's a hilarious joke, mother, but that's absolutely not happening. And she's like, yeah, he just said, like, he really would love a holiday. And I showed him our hotel and he said, oh, it looks really lovely. And I'm like, yeah, cool. He can go next year or he can go the week after we've been there. But why on earth would this man be on our holiday with us? Like, that, it's such a strange thing. Anyway, wasn't a joke, turns out. This man appeared on the second week of our holiday. Hi, Chloe. Hi, everyone. How are we? My sister had never met him before. He also brought his son, which at one point, my mum tried to make that a thing between me and the son. And I was like, that's disgusting. Get your head checked. I would never. You're dating this man. Why on earth would I date his son? That's so, what a strange setup is that. That just is not okay in my brain. Anyway, we did not see my mom for the entire second week of this holiday. And we got back home. There was a situation that happened between me and my mom, an argument that happened about Paul. And then that same day, later on in that day after the argument, she had kicked me out. I had to stay at my sister's. I had to sleep on the sofa for a few days. And then a few weeks later, I decided to move in with my brother because it just wasn't... The situation between me and my mum declined so quickly. And it was so strange because I didn't come out of the... Like, after she'd kicked me out, I didn't think, oh, this is it. Like, we'll never... Like, our relationship will decline so fast after this. I thought there was light at the end of the tunnel. I thought maybe she's struggling a lot at the moment with divorcing her partner, my stepdad, and having to sell the house and things. And I thought it's just a midlife crisis. There you go, quarter-life crisis, midlife crisis. But then things declined very, very quickly. A lot of nasty words were said. Some on my... Actually, no. At this point, none on my part. And, yeah, I moved in with my brother. And as of my 19th birthday, Actually, maybe just before my 19th birthday, I have never seen my mum since. I have spoken to her since. We have texted a few times. They haven't been nice. And I would love to read the texts from one specific incident because it truly shows her behaviour. Like, it truly shows her personality. She was drunk at this point, but it just shows what kind of person she is. But yeah, at the same point that this whole incident with my mum was happening, I also met my partner. We met online. And we were talking about life in general. I did share what was happening with me and my mom at the time with him. And we bonded very quickly. And initially, a friendship quickly turned into not a friendship. And yeah, this is going off on a tangent, but we wanted to meet in person, but COVID happened in 2020. And he lives in Belgium and I lived in Belgium and I lived in the UK. And the way that it would go was that when travel was allowed again, the borders would shut in Belgium, but the UK would be open, and then the UK would close, but Belgium would open, and vice versa. And that happened for a few months, and it was incredibly frustrating. But then in November of 2021, we finally did meet in person, and I'll put it out there, I did not tell my dad. Also, that's coming out so far left field because I have not mentioned my dad at all during this whole story. But I'll get into it. I hadn't told my dad at the time and he was so angry with me. And I am so sorry. Like, I do really regret it. He took it very, very hard that I didn't tell him. But my only experience with a parent had been with my mom, and that was not a nice one. And I didn't want anything to jeopardise me meeting this guy, so I didn't tell him, and I feel really bad about it. But you live and you learn. And then, so we dated long distance for 2 years. And then in September of last year, I moved to Belgium, and that's currently where I live right now. I am sat on a sofa in our apartment with my tea. I am an absolute tea fiend. I love a cup of tea. Now, that's very general. Like, I am a typical British person. I love my tea. And I am a Tetley tea person. I don't know what other tea people drink. I did try PG Tips, and then I went to Tetley tea, and I just haven't looked back. Some tea brands taste like dishwater, though. It's absolutely vile. Like, not even off-brand necessarily, but some teas I've tried, and I'm like, what on earth is this? Like, sewage water. I think, actually, this obviously not a sponsorship because no one knows who I am, but if I ever got sponsored by Tetley Tea, I fully believe I'd cry. What a win. What an absolute win. Anyway, sorry, off on a tangent, back to the story. So I moved in with my brother, and at this point in time, I got in contact with my dad again, and a lot of truths were told about my mum, my stepdad, the whole situation between me and my dad, because I did not mention this, I'm so sorry, but when I was 2, my dad just kind of disappeared from the picture. Absolutely. Like, my mum and my dad dated for quite a while before I was born, and then they conceived me, and then when I was 2, they split up, or maybe, no, I think it was about 1, it was earlier than that, but when I was 2 anyway, he just completely disappeared. So when I moved in with my brother, he, and I'll always be so grateful for it, he got in contact with my dad, because when I was born, my two older siblings were 16 and 18. So they remember my dad. He was there for a lot of their teenage years, if not all of them actually. And they remember what kind of man he was, and it was so strange how everything happened. And they always questioned it, but with how narcissists work, you kind of live through them, or like you live to please them, and you never wish to upset them. So none of us asked, or at least my siblings didn't ask any questions, because they didn't want to upset my mum and they didn't know what had happened. But I met my dad again, and like I said, a lot of truths were told, which was a eye-opener to say the least. And then things weren't really working living at my brother's. So then I moved in with my dad, and I'm so grateful for the people that I had around me, but to have to navigate life at 18, 19, when you have no knowledge of anything. I was such a sheltered girl. I had no idea how to do anything in life. I hadn't gotten a job yet at this point. So I had to get my first ever job, which was absolutely terrifying to me. And even now, like, going for interviews and things for jobs are so scary. Can I just please put that out there? It's terrifying. But yeah, I had to get my first job, pass my driving test. I had to book my first doctor's appointment all by myself, and things like that. Like, all of these things, well, not necessarily the driving and stuff, but just little things that I should have done years ago, and I hadn't been able to have that independence because my mum prevented me from it. So to have to navigate life at 18, 19 is an odd feeling, because you feel so behind in everything. Every single aspect of life, you feel so behind. Like, I had no social life, I had no love life. I didn't have a life just to start with. So yeah, there's as you can tell, there are a lot of topics that I can speak on. The main things I do wish to speak about, I will obviously share my stories and things, and hopefully people find them interesting, find them sad, find them a way like to bond, whichever. I just thought I'd share my stories and things, and yeah, so I'm not sure what the next episode will be about, but we'll see next week, I guess. So yeah, I'm not really sure how to end podcasts, so I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye.